my good friend and colleague, Paul Kirschbaum. I'm Leslie Wooten. It's 10:33. Let's get into it. We're about to start a four-part series yet again. This one is on menu strategy. And I know a lot of people are looking to either start a menu for a startup. Maybe it's a seasonal menu that you're adding into something. Whatever it is, we're going to go over menu strategy. We've got some good points in this conversation that could even help you reassess the menu that you already have in place. So 4 parts to it. The first part, we're going to go over analysis. Then we're going to hit creation. That's going to be the building of recipes and everything. Then development, the actual testing of the food. So you got to wait till stage 3 before you're testing food. And that's just the fun part of it, that it's not playing in the kitchen like a lot of people might think it is. And then we'll finally get into the design of the physical menu, the layout, the pricing, the placement, the prominence, all those fun things. So Paul, let me get to my yes or no question on menu strategy part 1 analysis. Yes or no, your customers are in charge of your menu?
No.
No, why not?
They're just not in charge of your menu. You're in charge of your menu. I mean, do your customers have input? Some places, yeah. I mean, should they? I mean, yeah. I mean, you got to know your customer and who you're serving, but they're not in charge of it. I don't know if we haven't talked about this question, so I don't know if you're going to think differently than I do.
Well, so let's talk about regions, like where you are, like the customers in the area. Is that part of the analysis? This is what we need to do. What are we analyzing to be able to determine what our menu is? Or is it just you, the owner, operator, or chef going, I want this, period? How much say-so do your customers in the region have on what you should have on a menu?
I think it's your choice of words. I think if you said, do customers drive your menu, I'd have said yes.
Okay.
But are they in charge of it? No. I mean, when you talk about external insights, demographics and a competitive analysis is paramount. I mean, you have to do that. You got to know what your demographics are. If you're doing hipster kind of style food or, things that are trendy at a different level, but yet your demographics are, middle-aged white guy that likes comfort food. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, I'm generalizing here, guys, so please don't beat me up on this. But
right.
I mean, you need to know what your area is, and if you're going to start doing duck confit, but your average age in the area is 63, I mean, I'd reconsider.
Yeah.
Depending.
So pending. Yeah. So this is menu analysis. This is not considering what color paper you're going to print your menu on. We are far from that. This isn't putting ingredients into your point of sale, trying to make sure that you've got your AVT on point for what's about to happen. This isn't even testing recipes in your neighbor's kitchen or in the backyard yet. This is menu analysis. And correct me where I'm wrong here, Paul. This is your expertise far more than mine. Similar to business analysis, this is where you want to communicate to your customers through your menu, through what F&B is going to be on there. And you do have to take into consideration who your customers are going to be. And that might have everything to do with where you're going to be first before you decide what's on the menu.
I mean, yes. I mean, your menu is your number 1 marketing tool, period, in the restaurant. Every single person that comes in your place looks at your menu. I mean, that's just what it is.
So is the analysis more of a reason why something is on the menu, or you have to learn the reason why before you put the items on the menu? Like, we need this type of food. We need Asian influence. We need comfort food. We need fast food. We need fine dining. You've got to identify what the region needs before you define what your menu exactly is, like ingredient wise. Is that what analysis is?
I mean, yeah. I mean, analysis is it breaks down your menu. If this is looking back at your old menu and kind of where do you want to go from there?
Yeah.
Analysis is imperative. I mean, that's what it is. It's not the end all be all. I'm going to be very honest with that. I've seen people just work off analysis, and you could crush your kitchen that way. And you could be wrong. I mean, some things are tweaked. If you're, it's kind of like if you're not set up for analysis, it is kind of a headache to kind of get to that first spot. If your POS system is all over the place and you're running reports and you can't kind of didn't keep them in the right categories, and then you're trying to do a food cost, it can get really, really cloudy really quick. But if you don't do any analysis, you just do a menu, just throw it out there and see what sticks. Most of the time you're going to run into some speed bumps. It's really tough. But yeah, deeper dive into the numbers, and what is selling, what's not selling. We're going to get into placement. We're going to get into brand marketing and how does it affect the staff in the back of the house, front of the house, training. A lot of that stuff goes into it, but the analysis is really where we get started.
And so if you have a Pmix, that's indicative of already being open and to review and analyze a menu that you're already working with. If you don't have a Pmix and you're starting from scratch or even wanting to start over, how would you develop something like that so that you could analyze what is going on your menu?
So you asking me looking at a Pmix, or if you don't have a Pmix? I kind of lost you on that one.
If you don't have a Pmix, because I think a lot of people can understand a Pmix is just going to give you your top sellers, ingredients, what are you pushing out, and what your bottom sellers are, and it's going to product mix. How can you analyze a theoretical Pmix if you have not created the menu yet?
Well, if you haven't created a new menu and you're looking back, if you have a Pmix, you know what you sold. And you need to know these things, because I mean we're going to get into know your plow horses, your stars, your puzzles, and your dogs. And how do you know that? You need the Pmix, and that matches up with your food cost, your recipe manager or recipe costing system, or your margin that has the margin built in also. Because if you put those two together, it's going to spit you out the numbers. You kind of put them on a graph, and then you graph them in certain areas. And obviously the stars are great margin, great food cost. Very popular. How do you know it's popular? Well, Pmix. And dogs
we don't sell one a day. Yeah, it's not. We sell one a day at $2. We sell 35 a day at $1.12, and so we're making $30-something on this versus the $2 on the high margin. Yeah.
So I mean, we talked about this when we did food costs. You can't take percent to the bake. You can take margin to the bake. We've always had this conversation. Just because that a 40% food cost, you don't get rid of it if it's a great margin, i.e. lobster. But with the Pmix product mix, I've heard it called 1,000 things. You need that information too, and you need this information, and then that's kind of how we start our analytic dive. That's really the basic of it. Now, if you don't have this information, you better have this information, and then it's not a guessing game, but you can use demographics, competitive analysis. When I say competitive analysis, you look at if you're doing something similar to somebody else in the region, look at their menu and see, go into their place, see if it's selling, look around, ask around, kind of get an idea, because you're going to have to do a lot of guesstimates, because you don't know what your trends show. But make sure you track everything so you can eventually dive back into it in 3 to 6 months whenever you're going to do your menu again.
Right. Interesting that you said go scope out the competition, because one thing that I've always recognized, and even as a consultant on where somebody's looking to go, is you look for where there's other restaurants. Similar to why they're in the mall, there's a food court. All the restaurants are all grouped together. Same thing happens like downtown or along the pier. And that might be a completely different conversation that we have of why would you group restaurants together? And I think it's not only the norm that we're used to, but I think it's the right strategy. But at the same time, you don't have the same restaurants grouped together. It's not as simple as just looking and going, oh, they've got 3 fried chicken places within 2-block radius. Let's not open another one. Or is it? Or is that what you're doing? You're looking at what other people are serving, and you're recognizing, okay, bar food is hot here. Do I jump on the wagon, or do I stay away from that? What are you analyzing there?
Well, there's two thoughts of it. I mean, look at Walmart. Look at Starbucks. There's some, or even Dunkin' Donuts in the Northeast. I mean, there's one every damn corner. Yeah. And the reason that is because I drove by one today. There was a line at the door. Just literally they could put one across the street and be as busy. So there's that thought. Then there's also, well, I don't want to be like them. But I mean, you look at you go down to, I've been to a place that has a lot of fried chicken places in the same street, 4 different kinds. And you get your little tribalisms, like, that's my favorite because I do it this way. Or I do it this way. So, but if they're busy and they're really, really, really busy, and a lot of restaurants around there are not, then they're doing something well inside with management and their menu, because you don't just go in for management and people. I mean, you go in for the food. So if people are going in and there's a 2-hour wait and you see an opportunity to take some away from that and do it your own way and put your own spin on it, then I don't shy away just because there's something similar. I mean, look at Panera. When they launched, they went after every local chain that did something that sold bagels. Every single one of them. They opened up right across the street.
Mhm.
So Walmart does it.
I think there's something to say for that. I think it's a great strategy to go where the need is.
Yeah. Did we get off the base of analysis? Man,
I think you don't think that's analysis.
No, I think it is. Technically, it is. We're now, we're analyzing it.
I do too. I think, and so here's the question about that: is does the region have more impact to your menu than your own chef?
Oh, we're going back to, do I need a chef again? I hate leaving my menu. If I'm a consultant walking into a place, I never would recommend giving full control of the menu to the chef.
And so I'm going to argue with, for the sake of this analysis conversation, the chef does not need full control because of the region, because of the demographics, because of the sales in the area.
Yeah.
That should tell the chef what they should do, not
exactly.
Oh,
that's it. That's where that's where I'm getting that face. When I get that face is, we've had this conversation about chefs, and this is your business. You're gonna be running this for years and years and years. I guarantee that chef will be gone before you are, right? So make sure it's driven by you. Now, can you give the chef some leeway and some
do the thing? Yeah.
But that's a different. I guess that's a different show.
I mean, I think it fits into some analysis. Here's why you need to go in this direction, and not on the opinion, even of somebody who's got some talent. Like you're looking at the analysis of your region, of your demographics, of what's happening. Does that customer influence and region or style tell you if you're going to have like a small menu versus a large menu?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, part of my menu strategy in general, the big overview of menu strategy, is social media critiques. And this is for an existing restaurant. This is not for a new restaurant. But even if it's a brand new place, if you're going to open up an Italian restaurant, I would look at all the Italian restaurants in the area, and I would look on the social media and see what people like and don't like. I mean, that's who we're feeding. And I remember the first question you asked me, I said no to, but if they have influence on what we do, our customer absolutely drives what we want to do, but they're not the end all be all.
Sure. And I asked those first questions because I think that kind of is the overarching part of the conversation. Like, what's driving the analysis? Is it the sales, or are we trying to set out as entrepreneurs to create something so fascinating that it doesn't matter where we are, people are going to come to us? I think that's unrealistic.
Well, it's realistic in the short term.
Okay.
But I don't think it's maintainable. Is that the right word?
Sustainable.
I live sustainable. Thank you. See, I told you guys.
I got you.
That's why we're friends. So I lived in Chelsea, New York for, I don't want to say 5 years, something like that. It was my first stint in New York City. I went back with my wife probably a couple of years ago. I think we went back for one of the big birthdays, and we just kind of walked through our old neighborhood, and all these some of the chefs that are in this neighborhood were on big TV shows, and it was funny. We were looking around, it's like almost everything is gone except diners and bars. They were all there. There was a Spanish tapas place that was there for a long time. But I mean, in general, all the diner and bars were still there. But all those little fancy, different niche kind of thing were gone. It could be a lot of different reasons, and New York is its own thing. But you can do whatever you can think and be crazy at the beginning, but eventually it's going to wear off.
And I think that's the point of this topic of analysis, is the importance of knowing where you're going and who your customer is going to be, not who you want them to be.
Oh yeah, you're right there.
Who is your customer going to be? Catered to them. And I think for anybody who's struggling with this part of their menu, like I've worked with some owners that are like, nope, this is the menu, period. I'm like, good luck. And you and I both know some specific results, but we can imagine what the results are when somebody goes into the analysis and skips the analysis part because they go, this is it, people love this. I'm like, not people on the corner in the area in the region that you're going to. No, they do not.
And this is when I talk to young chefs getting into business, the first thing I say, it's not what you like.
Yeah.
It's what your customer likes. Now, when I mean, Kate, now you can tweak that and drive some of it. Yeah, you have the opportunity to drive a lot of that. And I'm not saying don't be creative. I mean, you can be creative and still get a customer what they want. You can do that with specials or the, what is it? 70% of your sales come from 20% of your menu.
Sure. It's
80% of your sales.
80-20 theory. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's really what we're talking about. You look at, let's just talk about beer. You look like Allagash. Allagash is up here in Maine. 80% of their sales come to Allagash White. But that 20% they do is unbelievable. I don't like the Allagash White. I don't like wheat beers in general, but I don't like it. I think, but their 20%, I love. Their sour program is probably one of the best in the country. So that's what, they use all of that money from Allagash White to do that 20%. That's what I tell chefs. Take what the customer wants and play with that 20%. And you still, that will drive new traffic, but you're still making the customer happy.
Right. So even with that 80-20 theory, we could be talking here that 80% of your menu and what you're going to do is going to be determined by the analysis that you make. And then you start playing with the other part.
Yep. And I think in the deep dive and analysis is, it's not easy. It's not an easy conversation to have, but I'm sure we'll get into that a little later.
So let's also think about this. Does the size of your restaurant, dining room, kitchen, front lobby, takeout area, if you have one, grab and go if you have one, delivery, pickup, front door, does all that come into play as part of the analysis for what type of menu you should have?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I know you talked about a lot of places, but really starts in the kitchen. Make sure it's executable in the kitchen. So when we do a menu analysis, we run the numbers, we run your food costs and margin, basically a recipe review, and then we do a food cost review, which we take your Pmix, your sales, and kind of combine together. That will spit out that little graph I was talking about, the plow horses, the stars. And then I do another thing I call it. I'm sure there's a real name for it out there. I call it the 1, 2, 3 kitchen test. So
I'm sure that's an menu. Official name.
Yeah, it's official now. I take I take their old menu or their current menu, whatever it is, and I hand it to you. I never hand it to the chef ever, because what the chef thinks and what actually happens on the line are two different things. I usually hand it to the sous chef, and then usually like I tell them a middle of the road employee back there, a line cook, and they rank everything on the menu from a 1 to a 3. 1's the easiest, 3's the hardest, and we kind of put that into the analysis, because if it's a great seller, if it's a star, great margin, it's very popular, we sell a lot of it, but we put that in like a big block with little things shooting out and stars and arrows, buy this, but in the kitchen it's a nightmare to prep and make, and it actually slows down your operation, then there's a problem. So you need to put an analytics from your staff, opinions from your front and back of the house, and guest feedback. We had one place that we thought we had the best burger in town, and the burger, all my guests were like, yes, it's one of the best in town, but it takes forever to get.
Yeah.
And so we don't order it. And then I was like, oh, I didn't know that. Then I talked to the kitchen, like, we hate making it because it takes 20 minutes to get out the door.
Right.
When I can get my pasta dish out in 5, and then it just slows down. So those things need to be put into the thought process also. Yeah,
the analysis, like let's say that you are gung-ho on creating a wing place. And like, I'm going to do wings. Half my menu is going to be wings. The size of this kitchen does not allow me to fit 2 fryers.
Yeah. I've run into it.
You can't do it. So your wing dream, gone if you don't have the ability to put the equipment in the kitchen that you need.
Absolutely. And I mean, and a lot of times a lot of chefs are taking over a place, and you're just not going to add a fryer. It's not that simple, especially how much foot space you have.
Right.
If you want to do fried chicken, it takes up so much room in the fryer. It's just not gonna, it's going to either A, slow it down, or it's not going to be possible. You'll be on 20, 40, 50-minute ticket times. So it's a huge thing. And then your staff, and then you have to think about your front of house staff and what skill level they're at, and are you doing to go? Are you doing this? How many seats do you have, and how big is your kitchen?
I was talking to a client a couple days ago, and we were discussing coffee for a startup. And I was like, well, of course you'll have coffee, this, and I let it go, which is basic drip coffee. And they're like, no, I want espresso. I'm like, you're changing the entire dynamic of the team that you're training, your menu, where that's going behind the bar, what type of bartender you hire, everything, because you want espresso. Oh, espresso is easy. I'm like, I didn't say that espresso wasn't easy, but you putting that one thing on the menu, you putting a milkshake on the menu, you putting frozen drinks on the menu, you putting half your menu as wings, you putting espresso on your menu changes how you train and how you hire, whose job responsibility is what. And by the end of the conversation, he was like, okay, just drip coffee. I'm like, yeah, because you're not creating a coffee place or a breakfast place. You wanted espresso because you like it, which is fine. Don't put it on your menu. And that's the analysis we got to think about is who's coming in. First of all, if you're going to have a breakfast place, have espresso and be able to go with all that. But if you're not, if you're creating a bar, why put that burden on your staff? Why put that burden on your menu? And why promise people that are coming in something that you're not going to be able to execute at a high level?
Yeah, it's a trickle-down effect. I mean, you're saying espresso, and think how much real estate that takes up. Especially
Also,
for a bar. I mean, that just takes up my like different, and then the price point. I don't see the ROI in it. It's just I love espresso. I have an espresso machine in my kitchen. It takes up a lot.
Unless you got a full-time barista, you're selling food, you've got espresso as a hot commodity. That's real estate in your establishment that is taking up space. That you could have liquor, that you could have nearly anything that wasn't that, because
better margins, better check average.
So and I think that's the analysis that we're getting at here is you really got to consider what region you're in, who your clientele is going to be, what your staff is able to execute before you even determine what's on your menu. Am I in the right ballpark for what analysis is?
Yeah, I mean, it basically it's like a prime cost audit. I mean, you're looking at your COGS, you're looking at your labor and how it affects your menu directly. And then that's like you got to classify your items, you got to classify your staff, you got to classify your restaurant, you got to classify a lot of things. You got to classify your demographics. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. It's just not printing out a Pmix and printing out your food cost and then going to town on it. Now, is that one of the biggest parts? Absolutely, but it's not the end all be all.
Right. Absolutely. So final question for this, because we've got 3 more parts to this entire series of menu strategy. Final part just on the analysis is, what is the best way to organize all these different aspects into one solid strategy? How do you take all these details and determine type of food, size of menu, and execution of the product?
I mean, and overlaying the whole thing, not just the analytics part of it.
Yeah, I've considered demographics. I've considered my region. I've considered the 2 to 6 block radius of competitors. I've considered walk-by traffic. I've considered deliverable. I've considered time and training. I've considered my budget. I've considered all those things. How do you group that together and determine where your true menu should be?
I mean, some of it, you're not going to know everything. You just use those numbers to make the best decision. I do a pro con, and then when we have, because when you first do a menu, especially for the first time, there's way too much on it, and so that's how you get things to take off. And that's kind of what you use those resources that you spent time on, and kind of use them as your decision maker. To get where you want to be, because let's be honest, the reason why we're doing analysis is not just for our customer and sales and what we want to do for the kitchen can handle, what the staff can handle, what we like, what they like. It's also about placement. We need to know where we're going to put the stuff on the menu, because we obviously, there's only, like we talked about, 2 ways to drive sales: butts in the seat,
seats, Check average.
Yeah. So your menu is a direct link to that. Remember I talked about the 80-20? That 20 is for driving people in. That 80 better be check average. That 20 is to drive new business. So if you think of it that way, that kind of helps. And if you want to do 50-50, sure, whatever. But really,
Sure.
you know, the reason we want to know what plowhouses and stars and everything is for placement. When I walk into a restaurant, the first thing I say is like, oh, I want to make it pretty. I want to do this. I was like, I just want to make it money. That's my job. I want your menu to make money. So all these things that we're doing, the reason we're doing it is to make your menu money. Where do I put it? Put it on a spreadsheet, and I just kind of sit there and look at it and see. You know, there's so much stuff out there. You can technology and software, but really, if you have it in front of you, that's just how you make your decision. You sit in the group, you put up on a whiteboard, you spend some time, and I guarantee most restaurants don't spend the time in a restaurant on a menu when it's their number one sales marketing tool.
So much to consider, which is definitely why for this series, menu strategy, analysis is part 1 of 4. Like, we have to start here of all the things you got to consider, and basically the groundwork, the framework for what your menu should fit into. And if you've got an idea about what your menu is and you do an analysis and it's outside of that box, I'm sorry, as far as a menu is concerned, we're not trying to go outside the box. We're building our box because that's what's going to drive your sales. You can get creative within that box, but you got to stay within the framework of what the analysis tells you. And that's what this conversation is about. I'm sure we could keep going, but I'm ready to get into the next parts of this as well. So we strongly suggest anybody watching or considering menu, you start here with analysis, not just watching us, but in your own practice before you get into the creation of the menu, before you get into development and testing, and before you get into menu design. Start here, which conveniently for you is going to be the next series of conversations that we have. Parts 2, 3, and 4, we're going to go over all that. So if you've got any feedback for us or success stories, leave us a comment about your menu analysis. Successful, disasters, whatever it might be, we're excited to hear about any of it. And be sure to subscribe to the channel, show some love, and we'll keep coming back with more strategies and insights to improve your operations. Thank you so much.
Thank you.